This is the continuation of our project. And at this point, I'd like to review what exactly we're trying to accomplish here. Now, it's important for my students, and many of them already know how to paint, but now you have to go beyond just paint, beyond just copying, beyond just being a Xerox machine. We need you to create. And that's what this entire project is about. Now, to review, we started out with a large canvas, 24 by 48, much bigger than most of the students work with. And that forces you to think in much larger form. Then the next thing we did was to tone it. And from there, we drew out our project on paper. We didn't film that. You don't need to see that just yet. Another project that we do will be all about drawing. But at this point, do the best you can with your drawings. We drew it onto the canvas from our paper drawing onto the canvas, and then we went over the drawing lines because we didn't want to lose them. So then we started from there, and we started to fill in the volumes, fill in the pieces, the stones here, the ocean, and we filled in all those pieces of it, and we worked in grays, mostly grays. We added some browns, and one unusual thing we did was to add blue into our underpainting. Now, the underpaintings are usually created in green, in verde, griso, gray, or maruno, brown. Those three values, those three colors will allow your values to speak loudly to you as an artist as you go along. Those three will allow you to visualize. After we had our underpainting completed, then we let it dry for quite a while, several days actually, and then we went into the Bellatours, the color. So we added colors by our underpainting, our monochrome or semi-monochrome underpainting. On top of that, we thinned the paint down, went over our areas with color. And the color we took, we thinned it way down, it's called Bellator, and we painted the Bellator over a dry underpainting. And as you can see here, look at the blues that happened here. There was a gray underpainting, and look at the beautiful blues that happened. We added some yellows in here, and it turned very nice shades of middle tone green, Venetian values in our paintings. When you paint over an underpainting, sounds a little strange, but when you paint over your dry underpainting, semi monochrome or monochrome, you get these halftones. And how you do that is you take the paint that you're going to use, thin it down halfway. In Italian, vellatura means half paste. After we completed our monochrome painting or semi-monochrome painting, we added color. And how you do that is your monochrome is completely dry. You take your paint and cut it down about halfway, and it's called vellatura. Now, in Italian art speak, the vellatura is half paste. You use half of the paint that comes out of the tube and quite a bit of a medium. We have on our painting already completed our underpainting and the first round of Bellatura. What we're going to do today is to add some more Bellatura because as you can see our colors are not quite right yet. And then what we'll do is pick out some items that we want to be much stronger in our presentation and use a heavier paint. So we went from monochrome into Bellator, and the next thing we'll do is we'll add our second round of Bellatoras. Following that, we'll do detailing. And we'll get a detail on the things that we want to show, point out in our painting. And you can see this very easily in a Rembrandt painting. Now to begin my second round of Bellator, I'm going to use ochre. Very nice ochre, you see it right here. And I have quite a bit of liquid that you can see. This is the media that I'm using for this project. It's liquid by Winsor Newton. And so I'm going to start in a very soft brush. This is a 1-inch brush, very inexpensive. But all I need is a soft brush. It has to be very soft. And so I'm going to get some liquid on my brush. I'm going to pull down. Easy now, Michael. I'm going to pull down the ochre painting. I'm going to start here. I want to tie this together. The Bellator, very much like a glaze, except a little more paint, a little more pigment. I'm going to start to tie this painting together. Right now, it's all over the place. We got greens, we got yellows, we got this, we got that. We got to bring it together a little bit. So I'm going to start right here. You'll see it on the lighter, like the white. And you see how the Bellator works. Here's the waterfall without the Bellator. Here's the waterfall with Bellator. And you can see already how it's starting to get thick. It's starting, you look through the Bellator and you see the underpainting. So I'm going to work all in here, get this on. Again, quite a bit of liquid. Maybe I need a little more. Quite a bit of liquid going here, as you can see. It's getting very thin. And I'm going to introduce this into this part of the painting. And here, a little more. Now, you can see I'm putting on ochre, and I'm doing ochre over the first Bellator of ochre, and that's okay, because it will take on a second film. So you'll look through the first layer and the second layer to see our underpainting. And I'm going to add it here. And there is no rules, no hard, fast rules that I have ever heard of in this European system, especially this one, because it's mostly Venice, mostly Venetian. There are no rules how many Bellatoras that you can put on. Now, I'm going to stay with this ochre and go right into the ocean. I'm going to go right into the ocean. The yellow of the blue should give us a very pretty green, ocean green. So let's give it a try. We're here. And let's get some of this in. Yeah, right away. It's a very nice green happening. And we'll try to give you a close-up on this later on, where you can see this is the blue, that's the blue, and that's the blue with the Bellator. I'm going to add it to the entire ocean. More liquid, and I'm going to add it to the entire ocean. And what's going to happen, a couple of benefits are going to happen in our painting. The number one benefit is that we'll start to move towards in ocean colors as opposed to this very harsh blue, which doesn't look much like the ocean. So I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to go over some of these lighter spots. I'm going to have those become part of my painting. And here we go. And here we go on the ocean completely. All right, now there is our second Bellator on the ocean. Now I'm looking at the sky, and this yellow is very, very harsh. And so I want to tie this all together. By the way, ochre, we add ochre to most of the paintings in some form, because ochre, in essence, is the color of talon wax. If you were in the old cathedrals and so on, there were so many candles burned year after year after year that it creates a film on the paintings. And that film, aside from the deterioration of the final finish they put on, but that film of talon wax gives this beautiful old antiquish look. And we're going to do that. I'm going to do that right in this sky, because it looks very harsh to me at this point. So I'm going to stay with the ochre, keep it strong like a Bellator, not like glaze, not yet. Look how different that looks here. There's our, now all of a sudden this will start to recede. So let's push it back, push it back, push it back, push it back. So we can look through. Yeah, that fogs in. That'll look through the, there. You'll be looking through the first Bellator and now the second Bellator, and you'll start to build up a very beautiful color palette on your painting. So let's move along. Let me slide out of the way so you can see, and perhaps you can see where we had more green blue, we're going to add this ochre, especially to the sky, and we'll start to turn this into a painting that sings together. We want the values and the hues to look like they belong together. I'm going to go right up into the sky. Turn that sky a little more of this very pretty green that we have. And of course, how do you make green? Blue and yellow. So we're going to add the yellow ochre and start to turn this sky a little more reflection, a little more as a reflection of the water. And that's really the color of water. What's the color of the ocean? The color of the ocean usually is the color of the reflections, color of the sky at that moment when you're there. Water in and of itself, unless there's pollution in it or someone's coloring it on purpose, has no color. Even the ocean, the dirtiest oceans, even the ones that have oil in them, if you pick the water up in your hands, you'll see, what are you looking at? You're looking at the oil. You're not looking at the color of the oil. You're not looking at the color of the water, because the color is nothing. The color is clear. So let's move along. Get some of this up here. I'm going to go right over all of this. All of this to match. Now, in the end, because we have a large reliance here of ochre, on the ochre we may just do our final glazes with ochre. depending on how it dries out, of course. Let's get this down. Look how pretty that is. It's starting to take on. Go right over. Now watch this. It's black. And here's the ochre over it. And it starts to look like it belongs. This strong yellow, we're going to have to do something with that yellow. It's way too strong. But here, we'll go into the shale that we talked about last time. We'll get involved in the shale and put the vellatura of ochre on it so that black starts to have life. Right now, it's just gray, nothing. And even the rocks themselves in life, if you were there, and this, of course, we took from our painting of Devil's Hop Yard. You see the waterfalls at Devil's Hop Yard. They are not colorless. It's quite the opposite. They reflect from everywhere. I'll need a little heavier here. All right, so now starting to pull it together. As you can see, it's starting to come together. And all of this needs ochre. If you started on the sky doing ochre, complete the sky. Keep going. Unless you're going to change. And you could change the vellatura. And I think we'll, rather than change this vellatura, what we'll do is we'll add another hue to give us a little more variety in our composition. All right. I like what's happened with the green in these further mountains, the ones that are further away. It has a very pretty green to it. I'm going to do it here too. And okay, we got it mostly covered. We didn't do any of the original ochre, and I think I will. I think I will get involved with some of this ochre. Second bit on that won't hurt. So let's get it in. And over here. All right. Now, as you can see, it's starting to tie together. This white area is too white. I'm going to add some additional paint. See, it's all about control. You as the artist, you must control. You must control what the people are looking at. In this case, we're looking through a vellatura onto our original underpainting. Add a little bit into this wave. Some nice, there, some nice extra value in that ocean. And that's our second vellatura. Goes pretty quick. And in this case, we used only one hue. So we'll wait a little while for this to dry, probably till tomorrow morning. And then we'll do a third vellatura. And on top of that vellatura, we'll start to pick out the things that we want to use in impasto paint. We want to get something very strong, visible in our picture. Now the second Bellator that we applied yesterday is pretty dry. It's looking pretty good. And still a little wet there, but not too much. And what I want to do now, I look at it overall and I want it to be, now as we talked about creativity, the painting will talk to you. And this painting now is telling me it wants to be either evening or early morning. So what I want to do then is to add some darker value because I want it to be more either moonlight or early morning. So I'm going to add some darker areas. I'm going to add another vellatura of raw umber. Here it is. Here's the raw umber. I'm going to work it the same way. Pull it down so you can see it. It's still very thin. It's very dark, so you got to be careful what you do with this. But I'd like to create, here, I want to create some darker areas. Now, oh, I do like the color. I do like that umber color over this dark gray. So, it's very nice and warm, perhaps like an evening. I'm going to run it a little bit down here and some down here. So it's starting to give me another dimension. And again, it's all about control. You need to control your painting. Control the color, control the drawing, control the mood. And instead of coming right out the box and saying, I'm going to paint this brown, I'm going to paint that blue, I'm going to paint that whatever, instead of doing that, work with your painting. It will talk to you. I put a little bit of this on here. And actually we can make that, here we'll drag it downwards and we'll make this area here have some reflection. So then we can just come in and move reflections into it, as you can see. Now, it's a little jumbly because it's a waterfall. And I can get some of that happening just by letting the brush dance in a horizontal fashion, and we can let this water turn and swirl and do all kinds of things. And we didn't have to paint it on. We didn't have the problem. We did not have the problem of trying to paint a bunch of little motions. We got, and we'll get some water motion in that. Okay, and later we'll take another step. Let's give this some line work, some brush work. That's not, gee, that's pretty good. All right. All right, now, again, I want to bring down more liquid. Now I'm going to use this same dark brown and I'm going to bring down the color, the value of the ocean. And I said, well, I've never seen a brown ocean. Well, as we said before, water has no color, but the surrounding parts of the water create the illusion of color. And one of them, of course, is the daytime. The amount of sky, the amount of sunlight, the amount of moonlight. And so we are free as artists to decide when. What is this time? And as you can see, it's coming down. It's coming down. Here, let me do it over here. I'll exaggerate it. And you'll see that this umber will take all of this blue and make it look as though the area and the air around it is more like nighttime than a great sunny day at the beach. It's now becoming, there, it's now becoming darker. Now, the same situation here. Aerial perspective says that as things go far from us, go far from our eyes, they get lighter. And as they come closer, of course, they get darker and more detail. In our composition here, this island is close to us. So I'm going to use this. And again, this is just a soft Bellator. I'll put some brush strokes in it. So it looks like trees or something going on back there. And I don't have to sit there and paint each individual tree, but I do need to control my brushwork. So here now is that first little island. And there are many of these in New England off the coast of Maine, off the coast of Connecticut. Long Island has several little things going on. So now all of a sudden that's come close to us. That's right. You know, I can walk to that, just walk through this water and I'll be there. That or that are far away from us. Far away. So we want to keep, and I'm going to use my hand to pull some of this. I'm going to keep this one and that one more in the distance. And I think that's working pretty good, this area. And I want to go down and into this group of flowers, and we'll start bringing them closer, get down, lots of brush strokes, all kinds of ways, and have fun with this. This is something you're creating. Nobody can dictate to you what this is. It's from your imagination. So no one can dictate and say, oh, well, those flowers don't look like that. Oh, yeah? Yes, they do. To me, they do. And here, we'll just go down and out to wherever they lead to. Now, same thing. Let's take this sand dune. Let's do the sand. Let's make the sand. Now, this needs to have a softness. I'm not big on having a lot of brush work in the wet sand. Even though there is movement to the sand, I'm going to put it on with the brush, but then I'm going to soften it out with my fingers. I have a nice soft blend on this Bellator. And there it is. So there's that. And I already got it here. It's not quite as brown, but it doesn't matter. The value is working. The value of the paint. I think I'll put a couple of shadows in here. Again, this is a sand dune. So I'll put a shadow side here. Come on. Here, I'll put a shadow side here and one there. And maybe some down here. And as we go back, it starts to fade. Now I'm going to use my fingers and blend this in. And here. And we start to get that wall, that sand dune that we're looking at. And here, I need a little more. Now I can't leave this one darker than that one. It won't read, so I'm going to add a little more paint into this one. And here. And we'll start to read as a sand dune. Alright. Same here, I'm going to drag this back a little bit. And here we are. And same thing up here. I want to soften this out. I'm going to come as it comes closer to me. I'm going to soften this bit of sand and bring it with the brush strokes, exaggerate the motion as it comes closer. And I'll get a little darker as we come closer. Here we are. And just let it go off into the distance. A little more, even darker here. All right. And the brush stroke should carry that part of it. Okay, we're in the middle of our third, actually, session of Bellator. And we're going to stop and look at this for a few minutes and see where we are, what we need to accomplish. Our Vellaturas, our canvas is completely dried 2 days later. And what I want to do now is to add some detail. And if you want to see this process, look at Rembrandt's paintings. You'll see that he did exactly this, and then he went back and he repainted flush tone. He repainted things that he wanted to be very important. What we're going to do is similar. Of course, waterfall in this is very important. And I'm going to use, I have white paint to emphasize it. And I have 2 palette knives. I have one round palette knife, and one long palette knife. And so we'll start by emphasizing the foam. A little closer. We're going to start by emphasizing the waterfall as it goes over the cliff. And for that, I'm going to use a long palette knife. Now, this is how you use a palette knife. You take the paint and flatten it out. Very much like your ice in your cake. So you get a nice long bit. Then you come back in and you cut across it. And you get a nice load of paint on one side of your palette knife. Then you can control it. Now, as this goes over the cliff, of course, we're going to get more paint. We're going to get some spray. We'll get some downward motion. Foam all over the place. And the palette knife is the perfect tool for this part of your painting, especially if you're doing waterfalls or trees. Trees are very nicely done with palette knives. Here, and we'll come down, like this fall, almost like angel falls. And there. And right away you can see, look at all the gaps and things. It looks like the water's coming over the cliff and spraying out. And the palette knife itself will give you these beautiful motions. Here, here, and here. Now you can see right there where some of the Bellator, I'm a little surprised, some of it is still wet, and it blended in. And that's fine. I got no problem with that at all. So I'm going to just kind of dab on this. And let's go to the other waterfall there. Again, flatten it out like I icing cake. Come across and you got a roll of paint. So let's go here from way on top and run this down, let it fall outward. Come down, look at how pretty that comes with very little effort. You want to make it even heavier here. And if you have not dealt with or used palette knife, some artists just use palette knife. A lot of the people who do scapes, lots of landscapes or seascapes, will use almost exclusively palette knife and a little bit of brush. Sometimes no brush at all. So here we are, go down into the water where it becomes brackish. And I'm going to use a different palette knife here. I'm going to use a round because I want the shape of the paint to be different. And it'll reflect here. And see how nice turbulent that looks. I didn't want it to be straight lines. I want it to be foaming and all kinds of things happening here. Let's get here. And some more here. Some very heavy bits. And some very heavy bits of, make it a little foggy, let it fly up in the air. And same here, we'll let it run right up the edge of this. Don't forget, it's falling from way up there, and it's going to be everywhere as it hits the solid ground here and here. You can see the beauty, the difference in just the shape of the palette knife. And I'm going to let this run out. Get a lot of different, just by turning this palette knife on its side, you'll get a lot of motion that if you had to sit there and paint it with a brush, you'll be there for hours. And not that this palette knife work is a shortcut. It's not, well, it is in a way, but for the most part, it's a technique, not a shortcut. And use it as a technique. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're just using it to get, if you're just trying to get these techniques and just because you want to save time or something, don't bother doing a painting. Do the painting the best you can with the tools you got and the tools that you can buy. All right, so there it is, our getters. Getters. Okay. Now, I did originally have the third waterfall, and I think I'm going to put it in. I wasn't going to, but this is what I'm saying, creativity. Painting will talk to you. And I think it would be nice over here, and I'm going to add it in. Here it is. A little further out, I'll let some of it fly out and come down, come down, come down. In here. And just come off the top. And let it come down. There. Now we got 3 waterfalls, but I still need to add the brackish water area, and I'm going to expand it. Do whatever you think you need to do for your painting. I'm going to go extend out into the water with a rounded palette knife and add in some additional foam and so on. And there it is. Well, that's pretty nice. I'm glad I put that in. Now we do, as you remember, have roses here. And I'm going to use some red paint and pull in groups of roses. Now the red, you will be surprised how strong the red will be on this composition. I'll put a few up here, not too many. Some larger ones here. We're going to place a few people up here on this berm walking. Throw some nice shadows. And I'm letting the painting speak to me. This doesn't exist anywhere except in my imagination. So as I go along, it will suggest things. And so I thought you remember way back in our drawing, we did have a man, a woman, a man, a woman, and a puppy walking along. So maybe we'll add them, I'm not sure. But as you can see, we're not to go too crazy. So we did sort of a realistic painting in the background, and now we're going to come in front of this, add to the original Venetian technique and add some very soft suggestions. Now, this was our original palette, if you remember from the beginning, and it's been several hours, but more than that because it's drying time, and it's actually been 2 weeks. Now, we're going to work it onto this berm, and we'll put a couple of people on there, and we're going to do, into our realistic painting, we're going to do some impressionistic figures. We're not going to go crazy with them. This is a fun painting and a creative painting, and what's more important is that as you go along, your creative thoughts are working. Your creative juices are creating the painting. You don't have to sit there and look out at the ocean to paint the ocean. You don't have to sit there and look at a waterfall and paint a plein air. You don't need that. It comes from your mind. Now, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying it's fine to do that, but it's also good and very important that you use your imagination. So, I'm going to paint a couple of people up here on our walkway, and we'll paint first a little blue shirt, walking, and I'm just using a brush, and let's put him here. There's his shoulders, and his hands, arms, and his back of his shirt, right there. And let's give him, let's say, here, let's give him some dark brown pants. And here's his waist, working our way down, and then he's walking so on his feet separate, and let's give him a couple shoes. There's one, and there's another, and we'll mix some flesh tone. How do you make flesh tone? You use, of course, ochre and red orange, and mix those together, and we'll put his head right here, looking in that direction, walking along the beach, and we'll use some of the dark color, and we'll run a shadow, and here it is, and here. So there's a shadow for him. Let's give him a hat. Give him a little baseball cap there. Woo, that's a big baseball cap. Hold on. Sometimes you can get carried away like I just did. And I'm going to pull some of that off. That's all. Can't make a mistake in oil paint. If you do, you fix it. Here, now my hand was dirty, had some red paint on it. I'm just going to blend it in. Have a nice little red value in there, okay? Oh, there's a guy walking along the beach. Maybe it's his day off today. It's not going to work. So, let me give a little more waist to him. And there it is. Okay. Pants are a little funky, so let's fix those. And here he is walking along. You don't need much for an impression of a person. Is that a person? No, not really, but people will see it as that. Let's let him walk his dog. Maybe he's out in the morning. It's time to walk his dog. Now let's get a little dog here. Maybe his little dog is right here. He's got a leash, and the little dog is right here. Doesn't take much. Don't have to go and make. You don't have to go along and make a portrait of a little dog. Just a suggestion, and enjoy it. Enjoy your painting. So, yeah, we'll give him a tail. Oop. There's a little tail. Looks like a little Scotty. And so the man's walking his dog. Sun's just coming up. So I'm going to use a flesh tone. I made this flesh tone with this red orange and some ochre, as you can see. And I'm going to use this to describe his face a little more. Just a little touch. And there it is. And maybe a hand. And another hand. That's all I need. And let's give a little bit of motion to the dog. We'll give the dog a little, maybe he's got an ear. And the other side of the dog here. And his tail. And he, of course, would cast a shadow. So let's cast a little shadow for the dog here and here. And that's it. We got a man walking his dog in the early morning. Fun painting. It's wonderful to use your imagination. There's nothing you cannot create. Even now, even after I've completed this picture. Join us next time. We'll be doing some drawing. And we'll be doing more paintings. And quite a few of them this year, in 2021. I'm going to emphasize more creativity than just learning to paint. Because most of you, or a lot of you, know how to paint. And this is just learning to create paintings rather than copy, rather than sit out in the snow, in the ocean, and paint, which is a lot of fun. But you gotta create it in your mind first, not just see it and copy it. God bless you all, and I hope to see you shortly.